This is Georgie Fisher. Georgie is kind of new to this part of the movement. She is on the board of directors of Murder Victims Families for Reconciliation. I just met her back in when was that?
November, was it? I think so.
It might have been November. Somewhere in MVFR was having a board meeting up in New Jersey, and I was fortunate enough to be invited to the social gathering afterwards. And, so I want to know very much of Georgie's story, and I'm looking very much to hearing it. And I thank you for coming all the way from Richmond this afternoon.
Thank you.
I am very new to this. I hate public speaking, just to give that to you guys. I'm learning to become more comfortable with it. My name is Georgie Fisher, and I am from Richmond, Virginia. I was born and raised there. When I'm not doing this stuff, I'm a social worker down for VCU Medical Center in Richmond, Virginia. I'm a social worker for the forensic team, which means that I get to work with patients who are the victims of violent crime on a daily basis. So I get to work with the folks that come into our emergency department, maybe in some of the situations that our loved ones have been in, which is a very unique experience. As a social worker was sort of my history, I guess. I joined MBFR in the late summer, early fall of this year, sort of on a fluke. I met Lori Post actually through the internet when I was working as a correctional social worker over in Chicago. And that's sort of where I began to find my roots in death penalty abolition, I guess, and reached out to Lori maybe for some guidance, or maybe just to hear another voice, a murder survivor, that was, thank you, against the death penalty, which was something that wasn't necessarily an opinion that was shared in my family. I've always been anti-death penalty since I was a little kid. Never really had roots in it, never really did any kind of advocacy work around it. In 1996, my 24-year-old sister was raped and murdered and dumped in a field in rural Virginia. And, you know, right after she was killed, I had a lot of thoughts and feelings that sort of went against that being anti-death penalty. I was very angry. I was only 16 years old, and she left behind my niece and nephew, who were then 3 months old and 4 years old. You know, and that's one of the things I guess I talk about a lot now in my position with MBFR, is that I left behind being anti-death penalty right after my sister was murdered. I was very angry, had a lot of very strong feelings about what I thought I wanted to happen, or what I thought I wanted to have happen to the person who had killed my sister. I think thankfully I had some time to heal from that. Part of my healing process was taking a position as a social worker in the Department of Corrections, very young, very fresh out of school, and having a supervisor who thought that I needed to be cured from my anti-death penalty ways. And one of my first clients that I worked with was an 18-year-old boy who was being tried for stabbing his father in the head 18 times. Luckily in Illinois we don't have a death penalty, but they were looking at giving him some very serious time, and she thought that working with him would cure me of my feelings about being anti-death penalty. Unfortunately it backfired. And that's when I found MBFR. But working with this kiddo who had this long history of abuse and just these terrible things that had gone on in his life suddenly made me realize that this person that I had been hating for so long, that had murdered my sister, was this three-dimensional human being, right? I got to work with this kid every day for about 7 months. And when I say work with, I got to sit in a room with him and talk to him about what his feelings were being such a young man, 18 years old, facing the rest of his life in prison. And the other side of that was that his father was a police officer in the town that I worked in, and you know, as a result of that, he had a lot of sort of you know, negative attention from the Department of Corrections and from the officers and the guards. So I got to work really closely with him and sort of realize that the people who commit crimes like this aren't necessarily the evil, horrible, awful people that we try to make them out to be. So I guess it was during that time that I reached out to Lori Post and said, am I a freak for being a murder survivor and thinking this is horribly wrong what we're doing to people? And Lori emailed me back and said, no, not at all. There's actually lots and lots of people just like you in the world, which was an amazing relief, because I had, after working with this kid, he ended up getting 20 years, which was a huge victory for us. I called my family and decided to have that talk with them. You know, so if they ever catch this person who killed my sister, are you going to go for the death penalty? Are you going to be in support of that? And my family is very much in support of the death penalty, very, very much so. And it's a conversation that Lori, over the past year, has had with me over and over again about how to talk to them about why I feel the way that I feel. And I guess it was a couple of months ago that my mom finally said something to me when I told her I was doing some organizing work for MBFR, and she said, I think I understand where you're coming from. And I was like, what? So it's been an interesting sort of dialogue, and I know I'm sort of all over the place in talking. But I guess all of this is to say is that, you know, as anti-death penalty growing up, I knew it was the wrong thing. I knew that it wasn't right to kill people, especially when we're trying to tell them that we're punishing them for killing someone else. Working with my first client gave me sort of a different perspective. I only knew what I thought I knew about the person who killed my sister, and working with my first client in DOC allowed me to see that people are very three-dimensional, and I got to meet his family and work very closely with his family. And I can't tell you what kind of an impact that has had on me, but it definitely pushed me in this direction to start talking more and to start doing more work. And luckily I found Lori and joined MBFR. One of the greatest things that I'm thankful of, after my sister passed, I was sort of a very rebellious kid, in a lot of trouble, not doing a lot of great things. But her murder was something that set me in a different direction. And one of the greatest gifts from that has been that my partner and I adopted her child, her son, who's now 15, and had the amazing experience of raising a teenager. And it's been really an amazing walk in sort of patience, and so I say that lovingly, but he's such a great gift. He's such an amazing gift, because he's a walking presence of my sister every day. And we've been trying to sort of get him involved in this work and understand what it means, and that's been really cool. I'm not sure what else I should be telling you at this point, so I don't know if anybody has any questions about anything. Yeah?